Was Talladega a good race? Austin Cindric wins in a gridlocked photo finish, plus Ryan Preece, Joey Logano disqualified after Sunday's race. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. There were two common themes of Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race at Talladega. One, side-by-side commercials on Fox. Two, fuel saving. Fuel saving, fuel saving, fuel saving, save fuel, save fuel, save fuel. Be the Scott Dixon of NASCAR. And that's what everybody was trying to do on Sunday. But before we get into all of that, was this a good race? On TikTok, I gave it a 51. And honestly, I feel like I maybe overrated it over there. So I'm going to give it a 46 this time around on the YouTube side of things because this was not a very good race. Now, yes, we did get a clean finish. Actually, a green flag finish run to the end. That was the longest on a super speedway since July of 2004. That is 21 years ago. That race can legally drink now. For the most part, this race was wildly tame and not what you would expect from a super speedway race, and that's for a number of reasons. So, no, it wasn't a great race. It was wildly underwhelming. Like the first time I went to Cookout, I'm like, all right, that was a thing that happened. Didn't really love it, but it is what it is. It was the Eric Almirola of races. Underwhelming, but it was there. It existed. It was Andy Dalton. It was not everybody's cup of tea, but it was somebody's, I'm sure. Somewhere, maybe. Somebody will be like, oh yeah, it was a lot like an old school NASCAR race. I don't know if I agree with that one so much. But let's get into the race recap real quick. We'll start off with Austin Cindric. Obviously, he wins the race. But the race recap, though, we start off the race and we go 4 wide immediately. Like right off the bat, lap 3, everybody's 4 wide. And visually, it looks great on TV, but it's just everybody saving fuel. You have the leaders leading all 4 of those lanes, basically running somewhere between, 50 to 70% throttle, sometimes going up to 100% throttle. Michael McDowell was going 100% throttle a lot early on in this race, but they're saving fuel. And one thing that NASCAR fans always love to do is complain. NASCAR fans are fantastic at complaining. They would complain when everybody would get single file and just run around the top together. Guess what they were doing? Saving fuel, running, clocking laps so that they could start to make moves at the end of the race. Guess what they're doing when they're running 4 wide these days? Saving fuel, waiting until they can start trying to make some sort of moves, but the moves are different now. So visually, it looks really cool, and it gives NASCAR a lot of great social media clips and photos and everything to use out there, but they're really not racing per se. I say that, but then on like lap 20, the Toyotas decided, screw it, we're going to go. And they decide to launch themselves out to the lead, and they get themselves to the lead. And now it's a question of, is everybody going to go chase that? Like at a dog racing track, are they going to chase the carrot, the rabbit around or anything like that? No. Ultimately, the Toyotas just really put themselves in front, but didn't run away from the field. And I was really curious to see if one of the manufacturers is going to try to run away from the field this year, but it doesn't make sense to do that because that's just going to make your pit stop time longer for the end of the stage or for the end of the race. And ultimately, everybody kind of knew that. And they were like, all right, you guys go lead. We'll just ride behind you and save more fuel. And that's exactly what happened. We got our first incident of the day. We only had 2 natural cautions on Sunday. Both of them came during stage number 1. The first one happens when Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch are attempting to come to pit road. They both were pitting, and Kyle didn't expect the 6 to check up as much as he did, I guess. Goes to the outside of Brad. Brad bounces off the door of the 8, goes back to the inside, collects Ryan Blaney. Blaney's day is done. Brad's day is done. The dismal start for Brad Keselowski continues on this year. If I'm him, I'm picking up the phone and being like, Rodney Childers, what does it take to get you to be the crew chief over here for the 6 team? Ryan Blaney, sucks for him. His luck this year continues to be in the absolute basement of it, but bad run for him. Kyle Busch did manage to survive. They repair the car. He was running with the lead pack and then had a speeding penalty late in this race. Then on the ensuing restart, we got our second natural caution of the day. That's when Denny Hamlin spun Christopher Bell, his teammate, while leading off of turn 2. Bell goes down towards the inside of the track, collects the car on the inside, that being Chris Buescher. Christopher Bell absolutely slams the inside wall. He hit where the wall jets out to let the cars, the safety vehicles, onto the backstretch right there. If there's one thing about race cars, they will always find the worst possible place to hit. It's staggering, really, that they managed to continue to find the worst places to hit. But those were our only natural cautions of the entire day. Kyle Larson goes on to win stage number 1. I know. I don't understand it either. Hell has frozen over. I didn't expect Kyle Larson to win a stage on a super speedway, but that is his 67th career stage victory, all-time leader for stage victories. Thank God we stopped trying to hand out trophies for them, because that picture of Ronnie Childers holding the stage victory trophy in Atlanta, that was bad. And Kyle Larson having 67 of them, he's going to just have to start handing them out to people after races, because that would be too many to have there. Stage number 2 consisted of a lot more fuel saving. Just dudes riding around, saving fuel, doing what you would always love to do. Like when you're on an economy run on the highway and you're like, I can really stretch it out here. Yeah, it happened. It was that. There's a lot of fuel saving, a lot of side-by-side commercials, much like this one right here, sponsored by Driven Sunglasses. You could brake hard at checkout for 20% off plus free shipping. We also had a pit stop sequence during that. Shane Van Gisbergen absolutely blitzed his way onto pit road there, and that was entirely too fast. He got caught for speeding, which was pretty obvious there. John Hunter Nemechek leaving pit road. There were some weepers down on the apron of pit road because they got a lot of rain there, and it was on the racing surface, but slippery when wet. Yeah, they should have put one of those little yellow signs out there, because John Hunter Nemechek hit it and he spun right out. He had that plaid paint scheme on it from the Jack Links, who was the sponsor of the race as well. Bad look there for John Hunter, but caution did not come out for that. Bubba Wallace goes on to win stage number 2, and Joey Logano delivered an expletive-laden rant against Austin Cindric for pushing a Toyota to the stage victory. He called him basically every swear word you could possibly think of, and then told Cindric to text that in his notes after the race, which apparently is something that the Penske drivers and teams do. Not happy at all. Keep in mind, Joey Logano absolutely would have hung Austin Cindric out to dry if it meant that he had a shot to win stage number 2 there, but whatever. When it's Logano, it's the opposite way. More on him in a minute. Stage number 3 saw people doing more fuel saving. That's the common theme of the day, fuel saving. And that's what they did for majority of the stage. And then we got down to the finish. Everybody makes their final pit stops there. We get down to everybody being in line, 2 by 2 by 2, double file. And that's basically how this race would finish. We didn't get to see how Ryan Preece got to the lead of the outside lane, because Fox went to their side-by-side, which, to Fox's credit, when the races are on big network Fox, they have said that they are going to do only side-by-side commercials during green flags. Great, fantastic, love it, love to see it, improvement. Except every time they would go to side-by-side, they would run this like canned transition piece and then tell us that we're watching NASCAR on Fox and take the actual race off the screen, which was infuriating, because guess what? We missed it, and they never went really back to show it. But what it sounds like is Preece on the bottom got pushed out just far enough in front of the 24. He was able to jump up in front of the 24, and then he started to lead the outside lane there. And that's exactly how they would finish. Like an arranged marriage, they were all stuck together, pushing one another, whether they wanted to or not, because it's impossible to pull out and try to make a pass, because these cars don't have the power and they're way too draggy, and you just get stuck as soon as you pull out to pass. That's why we didn't see anybody out there trying to make the third lane run. Nobody wanted to pull out, which is something that you should all consider doing, because too many people are having dumb kids out there. Ultimately, it was Austin Cindric going on to win the race, and he wins by 0.02 of a second over Ryan Preece in a photo-ish finish, if you want to call it that. And it was underwhelming. It was just not what you come to expect out of a super speedway. Nobody could make moves. Kyle Larson after the race said, I'd love to be able to maneuver this car, but you just can't at the end of these races, and you're stuck exactly where you are. Gone are the days of the Gen 6, 5, 4 eras where you could make moves. You could get the outside lane rolling. You could maybe jump up and gain some momentum. No, you cannot do that anymore. It is all about track position these days, which is why saving fuel is so important, because they're not saving fuel because they necessarily want to, make it off fuel mileage race. They're saving fuel because ultimately it cuts down on the amount of time they're on pit road. And because track position is so important, they do not want to be on pit road a half second longer than they need to be. That way they can get back out on track and try to maintain the position that they were in. And now we're stuck in this weird predicament where it's not racing anymore. It's racing, don't get me wrong. And NASCAR will say, hey, we had 67 leaders on Sunday. We had 19,000 green flag passes. We had 116 green flag passes per lap, except it's not, though. Yeah, you had 8 drivers lead 10 laps or more. Great. That is actually fantastic. Hats off. The green flag pass number is always a bit construed there, and it's because we're talking about passes like this. We're not talking about passing, like getting multiple positions here or anything like that. We're talking about guys driving across the finish line. Oh, pass. And you're basically just trading the same spot back and forth the entire time. So it's a bit maddening because we know there's a better product out there. And as much as we talk about how this car needs to be fixed on the short tracks, it needs to be fixed on the super speedways as well. Ricky Bobby would be so upset that there's no more shake and bake action out there. There's no more hooking up with a guy and blasting off. And you can sometimes do it. Hooking up with a guy and blasting off is not what I meant to say there, but you guys understand what I'm saying. You can't, it's very hard to get momentum and push the person in front of you. You can do it. We see it happen from time to time, but it's not something that happens very often anymore. And then you get the finish like what we had, where it looks like you're just driving down 75 with a cop pacing and everybody just riding 2x2 behind and nobody wants to make a move because, well, you can't. It's against the rules. It's not against the rules, but you want to get a good finish. And if you try to make a move, guess what? You're not getting the finish. You're going right to the back. So hopefully we get some sort of changes going into the future because right now it's just not working out and it's super disappointing because we know that there's a better product out there. One more thing before we get to the disqualifications, we have to talk about Fox's performance on Sunday because it was abysmal like we've come to expect out of them. It was director Artie Kempner's last NASCAR race, which honestly I think is a good thing. I think that Fox needs a new direction for their NASCAR broadcast. Hopefully we get somebody that's not a Artie Kempner disciple. I have zero hopes of that actually happening, but it was Artie's last race. And in typical Fox fashion, we had a number of mix-ups. We came back from side-by-side, and instead of looking at the actual race, we were looking at the virtual race. For what reason? I don't really know there as well. In the pre-race, instead of Hendrick Motorsports, we had Kendrick Motorsports because Kendrick Lamar is taking the pit bull approach here and he's buying into Hendrick Motorsports. Apparently, they're going to rename it Kendrick Motorsports. Then we had all of the commercials, just side by side commercials. So much that in the final, 14 laps of this race, we went from lap 14 to lap 10 side by side. We come back for 2 laps. Then we go all the way until lap 5 of the race, not the stage, the actual race in a side by side. Maddening. And then we had a Wendy's side by side, and we did this puff piece about Frosties during the race. Didn't need that. And even Harvick seemed annoying. He's like, we've talked about Frosties way more than I've ever wanted to talk about Frosties. Like, good for Kevin Harvick for being like, we got to stop it. But there's an actual race happening on track here. And then they called the finish of the race like they thought it was a stage end. And you're paying Mike Joy to be the voice at the end of these races. Let him make the call. Turn off Clint's mic. Turn off Kevin's mic. Kevin does a good job of backing that away from the mic in that situation. But Lee Diffie does such a good job calling the finishes of the races on NBC. He lets the moment build. He knows exactly what to say. Mike Joy can do that. Mike Joy has done that. Let Mike Joy actually do that. But they're taking this approach of like 3 dudes sitting on their couch watching the race. And if I wanted to watch that, I would just live stream it with me and my friends doing that. But nobody wants to really watch that. We want to watch Mike Joy call the finish of this race. And boy, do they just refuse to give that to us. Now getting in the disqualifications. After the race, Ryan Preece, who finished second, disqualified. Joey Logano, who finished fifth, disqualified. Preece now credited with the 38th place finish. Logano credited with the 39th place finish. What happened? Ryan Preece, dude finally doesn't flip over, finally doesn't have to walk out of the infield care center, gets a good finish. Yep, get out of here. So under the spoiler, you can have 2 shims underneath there, 2 carbon fiber shims. His team had 3 carbon fiber shims underneath there. Disqualification for the 60 car, can appeal. The 22 car of Joey Logano, he is missing a spoiler bolt. Disqualification, also can appeal. I would love to hear how the 22 managed to lose a spoiler bolt. Was it not in there to begin with? I would assume it was just because it went through tech pre-race. Want to know the explanation behind all of that. But both those cars have been disqualified. Like I said, 38th and 39th place finishes for both of them. And I just noticed that the background ended itself. So this is my second time trying to record this because the first one, I wasn't happy with it per se. So whatever, you get the different background now. Let me know in the comments what rating you would give the race. Thoughts, comments on the race as well. The disqualification, Fox's performance. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok @BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook @BreakHardBlog.